So the world's on fire, and because of that, Are we ready?
Yeah, let's start.
Okay.
Let's just do action.
The world's still on fire, and here we sit.
Yeah, here we are, episode 4 of the podcast.
Yeah.
Carrie, who do we have here?
Today we have Stanley Diamond, and we were trying to think about how we met, and I think we met at a political event, the Democratic Party. But yes, this is Stanley Diamond, and Stan, you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
I'm Stan Diamond. I'm a civil environmental engineer. I was born in Texas, raised in Louisiana, and went to school in Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon University. I got 2 degrees, one in civil engineering and another in engineering and public policy many years ago. And I after college, was traveling around the country and went through Nashville, Indiana, and met a lovely young lady there named Pam Roberts. And we married, and we moved down to Louisiana in the early 80s and moved back into Morgan County in 1988. And I've worked in the area since then doing water and wastewater. And I'm retired now from consulting services and so forth, but I'm very active in the Soil and Water Conservation District in Morgan County, supporting that. And my passion's always been drinking water and protecting the environment and doing wastewater and stormwater and things of that nature. So I've been that's my passion, and I'm also an organic gardener, so I'm very much worried about and concerned and trying to work on soil health issues as well, improving our soil and protecting our resources on that as well. It's all interrelated, the environment, public health. I've got 6 siblings, all in one form or another in healthcare, and I tell them that my job has always been to keep them from being overrun. So that's my stick. So met Carrie and have enjoyed rubbing elbows with her and Michael, and look forward to sharing a little bit of the knowledge that I can with anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
And Carrie, I'm sure we're going to acknowledge the elephant down the road, which is the reason.
The data center.
The reason we met.
Yeah.
The reason you 2 met.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Yeah, it's your podcast.
Yeah.
Kind of introduce that if you want.
Sure. Well, I'm Carrie Sochello. I'm your House District 60 candidate for Morgan, Johnson, and Monroe counties. And I guess I would probably start out this episode by reiterating that I do believe in foundation. And I also believe in the value of knowledge and the value of profession. And so that is why, I've chosen to work kind of hand in hand with you in areas that is not my expertise, but something that I'm deeply concerned about, our environment and our drinking water and things like that. So so I've enjoyed working with Stan and listening to him advocate and also give presentations about our aquifer system and how we may or may not be affected with our aquifers if we don't be conscientious and take good environmental care of things. So that's again, that's I enjoy working with Stan and again, rubbing elbows because we have similar passions that we care about public health and the environment, and we also really care. I think we both very much care about the idea of loss of local control, and we see that running through here like rampant. So yeah, so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. A little bit about our water and our environment and how we're potentially going to be negatively impacted by that if we don't be good stewards of it. And so just some kind of educational topic for hopefully those that tune in and hopefully those that are in District 60 and especially those here in Morgan County that right now is being very negatively affected by the Google data center and AES power with eminent domain.
I would say loss of local control is a really good jumping off point. So what does that mean to you two, and how are we seeing that play out?
Well, I strongly believe that after working in the state of Indiana and working on many wastewater facilities, treatment facilities, and stormwater facilities, and so forth, and living right next to the White River, I'm very conscious about that as a water resource. And Morgan County did do some good work in that they decided to pay for and go and do a study of the water resources and the availability of water in our county. And it came out. It's a very good study. It's got a lot of information in it. It's information that's helpful to understand how the system works, at least locally and so forth, and kind of projecting out maybe a little bit. But things are changing so fast in our state and in our area with the addition of LEAP, the LEAP project, the Lilly project up in West Lafayette, or up above Lafayette, or Lebanon, excuse me, and also with the data center here in Monrovia and other data centers that are virtually popping up in different locations and so forth. And so as an environmentalist and somebody who understands how the system works, it was concerning to me when I went through the study and it says we have 132 million gallons of groundwater available in Morgan County, and that we're only using a fraction of that. And in fact, we do have an abundance of water, but everybody needs to realize, and this is what I've been trying to educate decision makers, the public, even with meetings with Google representatives and AES, about how the system overall works and where the concerns we have or we should have when we get into long extended dry periods. And so I've been giving these presentations on how the system works. And the watershed, the White River watershed, is basically the area in central Indiana that extends up to Tipton, Muncie, all the way over to Muncie and Winchester. And it's basically the area where when rainfall falls and that water that runs off or sheds off of the land goes into the tributaries and of White River and eventually comes down the river to Morgan County and to us here. And so that watershed is, within that watershed, there are numerous water treatment plants that different communities, public and private utilities use to get water from. They get water from the river itself. They get it from the aquifers like the Eagle Creek Reservoir, Morris Reservoir, and Geist Reservoir. And they get it from wells that are dispersed throughout in well fields along and in the alluvial outwash aquifers along the various tributaries like White Lick Creek and Indian Creek. There are wells in along the river banks and so forth that they draw water from. That water is treated and it's disinfected and it's distributed through a network of pipes and so forth and for domestic use. And when that water is treated and used and so forth, some of that water ends up being collected. Most of the water ends up being collected in our sewers, in our collection system, and it gets back to a wastewater treatment plant. And there are treatment plants all over the watershed as well. And there the water is treated again and disinfected through most of the season, and then it's discharged back to the river itself. And so there's a portion of that water that then, though, that doesn't necessarily come back when you use it. The water that's used for irrigation, or maybe you clean your car in the driveway and it doesn't go into the storm sewer, or doesn't go, it goes into the grass, or if you use it for irrigation, that water doesn't come back. So every time we use water in the watershed, a portion of that water doesn't come back. And we're having all of this development that's occurring that's putting additional demands on the water system itself, on the watershed, and how we use water. And so I've put together a presentation that gives more detail to that. And then the main thing that I'm concerned about is that under most conditions, when we have regular rainfall and snow runoff and things of that nature, we have adequate water. But there are periods of time, and they're becoming more frequent and they're coming longer, where the water, we don't get as much precipitation, and the water coming down the river, the flows are low. So I went back into the data and the gauging stations near Centerton in Indiana, right north of Martinsville, right north of the AES power plant, and looked at the flows that were coming down last winter, September, October, November, December, and those flows are down around 400 cubic feet per second, which equates to about 214 million gallons a day. And this was in October. And so I went back and looked at and gathered the information on how much of the wastewater from the upstream wastewater treatment plants, how much they were discharging. And just from the 9 larger ones that were in the immediate watershed upstream of Morgan County and so forth, they were discharging about 142 million gallons a day. So 66% of the water that was coming down the river during those dry periods was treated wastewater from those treatment plants. And when you add the additional wastewaters and the industrial discharges that are upstream and so forth, the bottom line is that during long extended dry periods, what's coming down the river to Morgan County and out of our watershed is treated wastewater. And as long as we're doing a good job in making certain that that water is treated and properly used, and they're not discharging things that shouldn't be in there that will impair our water supply, our aquifers and the natural treatment that we get from the sands and gravels as the water filters in from the river into our aquifers, that does an adequate treatment of that system, and our water supplies we're able to produce the water we need at this point in time. But as we see the expansive growth related to the LEAP project and the data centers, and Bargersville wants to add 15,000 more residential homes. There's growth, Avon and Plainfield still going on, and Carmel, and there's other smaller data centers going in different locations and so forth. There's no one single agency, there's no one entity that everybody goes to that says, well, how much water do we really have, and how much can I effectively take, and so forth. So everybody's just kind of going to take the resources right now, and we're going to get, potentially, if we're not working together to conserve the resource and protect it, we could get into a position where we're going to have problems during those long extended dry periods when things are going to have to shut down, or we're not going to have adequate water, or we're going to end up with concentrations of contaminants that are in those waters that get into our water supply system. And that means we have to provide additional treatment and things of that nature. So I'm basically trying to educate as many people as I can and share the information, and we're learning in the process because it's, in some cases that
how many times have you already changed your presentation? Like a few times, because the information,
as I've gone through it, I've been successful at being able to give the presentation at one time or another to all 3 of our local commissioners. I've given it to a number of the council members. I've given it in public libraries now in Martinsville, Monrovia, and Waverly. I've given it actually and had meetings with our Soil and Water Conservation District Director, Lisa McPhee. We've actually had virtual meetings with now 2 with the Google representatives from the Google project here, as well as their senior hydrologist and engineering project manager over the water supplies and so forth. And we've laid this out in front of them, that's saying that, if we're not working together, we've tried to get information on how much water they're going to use and how much they're going to return, and trying to share with them what's happening in other areas and what the flows are currently right now in dry periods. And And so we've actually done that also, had a meeting with AES, the power company that owns Eagle Valley Power Plant, and expressed our concern about those issues as well too. Now, the bottom line is those projects are going to move forward, and how much water they use and how much they return is still, in flux somewhat. But we are, again, trying to make certain that they understand the significance of what they're going to require from our water system and what impact that may have ultimately down the road. And that really that they're going to be they're going to need to work with everyone else, upstream water stakeholders and Citizens Energy Group and the utilities that are upstream and the communities that are upstream to make certain that we continue to have the resource for them to be able to operate their facilities. And so it's the more information we share, the more data that we and the more
Collect.
people understand about how the system works and where the Achilles heel of that system may be, then we may be able to work together to avoid getting into a position where we're like Corpus Christi, communities that are now starting to struggle with the generation of the actual potable water that they need to go about day to day. In Europe right now, because of the environmental conditions and global warming, they're shutting down nuclear power plants because there's not enough water coming down the rivers to run the nuclear power plants. And that we could get into the position as time goes on in the next decade or two where we could have not enough water coming down the river for the operation of the facilities that we have and so forth. So
when we talk about the potential of not enough water, I do think that it may be talking about the loss of local control. And when we talk about loss of local control, we talk about, or we consider the policies that are in place now and the policies that are written. And then we have also talked about several times our concerns about the clawback of IDEM. And so I think it is important to talk to the public about what IDEM does, what their responsibility is.
Absolutely.
And, that is basically a layer of public protection that common citizens really shouldn't have to be thinking about. Is the water that we're getting ready to drink safe? Is the water that we're going to shower in, is it going to be okay? All the environmental things that IDEM has had the authority to use to protect the public.
Right.
And now because of the policy that has been written and passed at the state legislature, we see that clawed back. So I want you to talk about IDEM, talk about the importance of IDEM and why we have concerns that they have no teeth or stake in the game right now.
Well, that's a good question. It's good. It's an extremely important topic. I, as a consulting engineer working for as long as I have through the years, working on water and wastewater projects, there are regulations that we all have to meet, and there are important things, and we're learning all the time about new things that we have to deal with, and we have to change the regulations and improve them to make certain that we protect the environment and public health. And very often they're hard decisions, and they're expensive, and they're difficult, but if we can do things and address them at the source and start early and work together, we can resolve them. Sometimes we have to go kicking and struggling, and the communities, don't like it, and the businesses don't like it. But we all have to be working together. Now, the Clean Water Act, over the last 30 years or so, we've done amazing work together with the regulated community and with the government and so forth to address the discharges from combined sewers throughout our watershed and throughout the Midwest and the Northeast. And basically, whenever it rained 25 years ago, a quarter inch of rain, we would have raw sewage coming out with the stormwater from our combined sewer systems. And so we've done amazing work to increase the capacities of our wastewater treatment plants, to build a deep tunnel to be able to store the first flushes in a lot of that stormwater that's contaminated, that's mixed with sewer. And then we've increased the capacities of our larger wastewater treatment plants and provided additional storage so we can treat those flows after. We can capture them during a storm event, and we can treat them after through our treatment plants. And so we've improved immensely the quality of the water coming down the White River during and after rainfall events. And that's good for our aquifers, it's good for our watershed, it keeps more pollution out of our water system. That said, now we're in a position where many of the regulatory changes, or many of the changes in our legislature that are being passed are reversing those environmental protection processes. They are reducing IDEM's ability to do the necessary environmental work to make certain that we're doing and treating the water in our wastewater treatment plants and in our discharges to the level and extent that's necessary. And that, the Senate Bill 277 that was passed last April, I went and testified on that bill, and it basically, there were over 40 things in that bill that reduced, eliminated, or restricted IDEM's ability to do things that were to protect our health and our environment, including the removal of their ability to make the rules and regulations about nuclear radiation. And so there's a lot of push right now through our legislature and our governor and the federal government to move forward with small modular reactors, nuclear reactors. And Indiana AES is studying the possibility of doing that at Eagle Valley Power Plant and at Petersburg. And their study is going to be forthcoming. The decision as to where they want to consider moving forward with that is forthcoming at any time. That, to me, where we're going to fast track and install and allow power companies to come in and install nuclear power facilities without the regulatory oversight of the state is extremely concerning to me.
It's very concerning, yeah.
The other thing that's been significant is that last year in 2024, they passed regulations on the legacy ponds that store coal ash residuals at power plants. And there are current amendments to those coal combustion residual regulations that are under consideration at the EPA, and they're considering rolling those back and allowing the states to make the decision as to whether or not these legacy impoundments need to be closed properly or how they need to be closed. And so we're going backwards in our regulatory authority, in our regulatory muscle to be able to make the regulatory changes that are protecting our water resource.
Yeah, so I think for the people who aren't engineers like me, what this means to me as a common citizen is again, it's more devaluing of professionals, but being that I'm not a professional engineer, I want to know as a common citizen that the things that I take for granted, like water, air, even soil.
Right.
Yes, I mean, those things that I take for granted as a common citizen, I want to believe that there's some professional behind the scenes ensuring my family's safety. And because of the legislation that has been written and passed by the Republicans, we don't have that protection now. or it is being layer by layer, the protection is being taken away.
I believe that's correct. That's accurate. That we are in a position at this point in time where the decisions that are being made on both the local, the federal, and the state level, that the regulations are being made in the best interest of and for the benefit of the businesses and the corporations that are being regulated, and not for the interest of the public and our public health and environment.
Absolutely. And I mean, for me, that's enough. Like, that scares me. Like, we need to have that protection. And if we don't, what are the consequences going to be? And I don't want to test those waters. So I want legislation to be changed back to where we have regulatory guidance.
Right.
So that your family's safe, my family's safe, and it doesn't keep me up at night wondering if the water I'm drinking is safe, or if the dirt I'm playing in is okay.
Right.
Or will it be able to produce anything? You know, these things to common citizens, that's what matters. But we have to understand the knowledge from someone like you. But then we kind of have to break it down, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be worried about these things. I want that layer of protection, and we need that layer of protection for our communities, for public health, for environment.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the challenge we have is that this is something that you can't ever quit worrying about, or you can't ever quit working toward. It's like our democracy and our ability to create a more perfect union. We can't not pay attention to it. We can't continue to work together to work toward those ends. And the decisions that we make, both on the federal, state, and the local level, need to be made with the best science and the best knowledge that we have. And that's kind of where, I've been trying to do, is to just increase that knowledge so that we all can work together toward a better end.
Because knowledge is power.
So,
knowledge is power.
So that's really where we stand. I mean, I've been able to gather information about the water use that is currently proposed and so forth, and share it as much as I can with as many people as I can in order to improve that knowledge base, so we make better decisions. But we really need people who, representation at all levels, that are going to put our interest in our environment first. And right now our political system is set up in a way that's being funded, because of Citizens United, is being funded in a way that our representatives almost at all levels no longer answer to us.
Oh, no.
That's where we need to address that. Yeah. So
now might be a good time to talk about. So we've talked about our concerns with the aquifer, and we haven't touched too much on the AES power in the eminent domain, but we could talk about, with this data center coming in here to Monrovia. I've been thinking about this a lot. I definitely stand for a moratorium. I stand for a moratorium for data centers and small modular reactors, because of the destruction that happens to communities. But one thing that I think we should be talking more about as community members and as a legislature, hopefully I'm going to be there, but and I am, because we're going to join together and get this done, right? But we need to be making solid community agreements for what it means when big businesses come to these communities. Not only do these big tech people need to be speaking to the Monrovia Municipal Building about what they're doing they need to be talking to the community members about what they're doing. And we need to have a clear path for what will be allowed, what will be tolerated, what we want to see, what we won't see. We need, every community to me needs to have a community agreement for the business infrastructure, because we're paying taxes here. We make up this community, and we are being left behind. And so first and foremost, not only do we need a moratorium for data centers and small modular reactors, but every community should be coming up with right now what our community agreement is. And we're not budging on it. And we aren't going to be the first ones to do this. This is happening. This is starting to happen, and it's starting to become common. And you know what happens? I mean, I can't promise which candidate it is. I believe it's in Pennsylvania. I'm pretty sure it's in Pennsylvania. But they have set up community standards. And guess what? The data centers aren't coming there. Because when they put that line out, they didn't get any bites because they couldn't meet the standards from the get-go. So they went on to the next community that they can take advantage of. So if we set up standards in our communities with what we will and won't tolerate, and we have to have a seat at the table for these decisions. And it's going to take people in office that are common people that are convicted in their stance to represent the people. So we've got to have a community standard.
Well, I think the challenge that we have is that the biggest challenge that I've seen is that we haven't, there's no requirement for disclosure of the information that's necessary for all of these various entities to work out how best to do it. The data center's been a challenge to find out, how much water they're going to use, how much water they're going to return, how much energy is going to be used, where that's going to be generated, and how much additional water that generation plant's going to need and going to use, and so that again, we can make better decisions as a community and as a region on how to use the water. And the LEAP project was a perfect example. I personally believe that building that kind of facility in an area where there's not adequate water resources, and then coming in after the fact and providing those water resources from outside of the watershed where the facility is located is problematic, and it's turned out that way. Originally they talked about 100 million gallons a day. Now it's 25 million gallons a day, and it's going to come out of the Central Indiana White River watershed. And it's important that the wastewater from that facility and from that area returns so that we can, again, continue to not reduce the flows that are coming down the river to individuals and communities like we have here in Morgan County.
And it's important to talk about here at this intersection, like just what you were saying, like they didn't really know how this project was going to go because it hasn't went how they thought it was going to go, right? I mean, they thought they were going to be able to use all that water, and now they're only using 25 million gallons of water.
Well, they've had to change their plans.
They've had to change. They've changed their plans multiple times, right? And then earlier in this conversation, just a moment ago, you talked about how in the beginning we didn't even know who this project here in Monrovia was for. They wouldn't even tell us that it was Google.
Right.
They wouldn't give us any information.
Right.
We had local officials signing non-disclosure agreements so that they could keep the community in the dark. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about how fast this pace is with this growth with the data centers and all of these things, and we're talking about the negative impacts on the water and the environment, what we have to continue to call out is no other business gets to operate like that. At no time have we seen businesses going into communities with the ability to not have a plan, to not say what they're doing, to not tell the community what they're doing, and to go at this rate of speed. And at the end of all of it, the people that live with it are the people that live in these communities. The people that are negatively affected by it and the consequences, it happens to the people. So why are we not being involved in these conversations? Because we don't have any representation at the state, local, or federal level. We're not representing the community. We're not representing the people. We're representing power. And we got to get it stopped. That's right, Stan. He doesn't even know what to say.
All I can tell you is that right now we're going in a direction that has a lot of risk, and if we're not all working together and if we don't have good information, then we're going to end up having problems, whether or not it's a loss of water, a loss of function, a loss of public health, a loss of the environment, more impacts on the environment. So anytime you rush these projects and you go through it without the information available to the public, and this stuff is done without that interaction and without the regulations and the regulatory community performing the function, we're setting ourselves up to fail.
Oh, yeah. Why are we doing all of these things before we have the infrastructure in place to do so? We've never been able to do it like this before, but all of a sudden we're supposed to live with this. And then the other thing that I think is important to talk about, this data center. I truly believe that what is going in the data center is going to be surveillance, mostly surveillance. And all of the data center is going to probably take a lot of our jobs. But I do think a lot of it is surveillance. But what I am concerned about, probably, and this, Spencer and I talked about this today. One thing that I don't think we've thought about as a community, and we better get to thinking about it right now, yesterday, is the amount of surveillance that we have just brought into this community.
That's a whole different issue.
Yeah, but it is something that we better be thinking about, because
the data center itself could be the target of a lot of anti-surveillance issues, and the security circle around the data center. I mean, it could start looking like Area 51 almost, where you can't even get within 100 yards of it. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have the people trying to sabotage the power lines going to it. So all of these people that have these power lines going through their property, it's not just going to be the power lines. I mean, they're going to have armed security on their property watching this. They could have drones flying over their property monitoring the power lines going to the data center. So, well,
I don't know.
It's a little out of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, it is
something to think about and worry about.
It is. I think the bigger issue is that, and I think that really that we missed an opportunity on because of the way this was all handled and done, was that when you compare the economic benefit of what the data center is bringing to Morgan County and to our country as a whole, we don't look at the benefit that we've lost in that Monrovia in this area and so forth was poised and was starting to develop in a way residential and commercially and in retail and other reasons. We had, I mean, the community, when you think about the economic and the development that we missed out on because of now this 600 acres not being available and all of the other area around it that can no longer be developed and used in a fashion that brings in economic benefits to the
Community.
the community. And that's really what our state legislature has done when they passed legislation 2 or 3 years ago. When IDEM has a new regulation or a regulation that they want to improve, they used to do a cost benefit analysis to determine how much it costs to do something and what the benefit, how much of a benefit was that regulation. And the wording and the regulation, the administrative rules that they have to work by were changed to say we no longer look at the benefit that we're losing or that we could gain by doing this regulation. We're going to look at the cost to the IDEM to implement the regulation and the cost to the regulated community to comply with that regulation. And if that cost is too much, the governor can veto it. Mm-hmm. So that to me is the bigger issue, and this is just one example, and it's a big example, but it's one example of where we're not looking at the lost benefit or the benefits that we could with other opportunities or with other ways of developing. And so those are the communications, and those are the things that we need to be working on the regulatory side of it, and on the legislative side on it is working toward the communication and doing the things that are beneficial, the bigger picture beneficial, and not losing it by just throwing money.
Yeah. When you talk about the cost analysis, the cost and benefit analysis, and you're saying that, now they don't look at the benefit, right?
Right.
And Braun can just go in and veto and do what he wants to get the things that this legislation is saying they think is important for our growth, which is data centers, small modular reactors. But what I want to keep in mind, and again, I mean, we have to call out the harm. When we talk about they don't look at the benefit, but they'll throw money at something that they really want. I mean, we've put a lot of money in tax breaks into these data centers. But when we talk about the summer lunch program or the summer food program, what was it, $7 million? We couldn't do that. We couldn't feed our children. So what's the benefit? I mean, we can find money all the time for the things that we're not even being asked as a community how this is affecting us, or we don't even get a seat at the table. But when we start talking about policy that's going to help people, we never, in the state of Indiana, we can't find the money for that. So that's a problem to me. When we can find the money and we can make legislation and we can make it work for big tech, but we still don't, our healthcare. I mean, we could get out some paper and talk about the decline of our healthcare and how many Hoosiers are without healthcare right now. Why can't we find the money for those kinds of things? We can, but this legislation chooses not to.
I don't know how to respond to that.
He's just a water guy. Kid.
Yeah.
Water guy.
I agree 100% that our priorities are not around public health. Are not what's best for our citizens, are not what's best for our kids and our future generations. I mean, right now we're moving in a direction that is detrimental. I mean, our kids can't find jobs. They can't go out and
they go to college and they can't afford a house.
They're living at home with their parents longer. I mean, just going to the grocery store is just everybody's struggling.
Yeah.
And we're in a position where the decisions that are being made on the federal and the state level are such that we're going backwards on those as well too. We need to be concentrating on soil health and being able to produce more food and being able to help our neighbors and to have better healthcare outcomes and all of those kinds of things. There's absolutely no question about it that we're moving in a direction that is not sustainable, and we're losing control of that process because of who's making the decisions. So, bigger picture wise, it's all related.
Yes.
And we're unfortunately we're not moving in the right direction as a country and as a community from at all levels at this point in time.
Yeah, and I think when you say we're not moving in the right direction, we're kind of going backwards. And I don't know, I've said this a few times. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but I think the thing that is most unsettling to people, I think that's this almost this heaviness that we feel when we're out. I do believe that is because as Americans, we have, life is just ebbs and flows, and we as a country have been through really hard things, we've been through really good things, but one thing we have never ever done is we've never been asked to regress. And animals don't even do that. Like
Right.
When habitat goes bad, they go somewhere else so that they can survive and thrive. As citizens, we've never been asked to go back 70 years, 60 years to regress. We've always been progressive people. And so that is a very unsettling feeling. And we have to know it's not right. We want to progress and move forward.
Well, I want to take us back to Martinsville. A number of years ago, we had a tornado that came through town. And I think, and that you'll see this across the nation and across our country, anytime we have a major disaster or problems where people are put in harm's way and have trouble. In Martinsville, we had that tornado, and I was so proud of our community. We had people come out with pickup trucks and chainsaws, and everybody pitched in, and we were all working together. And I worked for 8 hours in the cemetery, cutting tree limbs and trees and pulling them off of the cemetery headstones, and people were hauling them off, and just the only thing the mayor had to do was to stand on the town square and direct people to go where to go to help and pitch in, and we did amazing work together. And that's where the United States and the people that we live and work with we're at our best. And the problem is the division that has been created.
Yes.
And that we all need to be working together toward a better community, a better way of life.
Yes.
Working together to help each other, to grow the food that we need, to raise our children in an environment that is acceptable and
safe.
And to continue to learn and to grow as a community and as a nation in a positive way. And right now, we need to all come together.
Yes.
And we need to be concentrating on doing that and not having people divide us and tell us what our differences are. And that's where I would say the bigger picture is. It's not, the environment is extremely important, and without the water, we're dead.
We're dead anyway.
So
the world's on fire.
Either we're going to work together and we're going to get there, or we're all going to go down.
Yeah.
And
thirsty.
And fight with each other.
Yeah.
So.
And I have to interject here because this is you've hit the nail on the head. When I was talking to you about the rally that I went to on Sunday, one of the speakers, he wanted to talk about how this is not political, and the data center and AES, and I agree with that 7 out of 10 Americans hate a data center. They just put out a study, so I agree that the data center and the power issue the eminent domain, that is a nonpartisan issue. Pink, blue, purple, black, green, brown, we don't like it. We don't want somebody coming in and taking our property, and we don't want data centers. And that is nonpartisan. But what is not is the legislation that allows this to happen. But going back to the rally, one of our community members wanted to talk about how this wasn't political. And when he goes out to help his neighbor, like we do in this community and like many communities do, he doesn't ask them if they're a Democrat or a Republican.
Right.
Right. And right, you don't. But one thing I think is important right now is as community members, that's certainly not how we're going to go up and say, hi, are you a Democrat or a Republican? Because otherwise, but we need to come together as a community, but we do have to understand how we're being harmed and why we're being harmed. Yeah, it's just we got to wake up, and I do think this community is waking up. I mean, I am inspired by hope, because the problem right now is we got a lot of opposition in little chunks, you know. I mean, we show up here and there's new people and there's something going on here and there. But when we do get all of the people power united together, and I think we're on the cusp of it, but we are missing that piece. We understand that we have something going on here that we don't like, and we kind of compare it to a cancer that is happening here, and we're not liking it. In this community, here in Monrovia, and other rural communities too, because at the end of the day, you and I are trying to be a good steward for the environment and public health, and we also are hoping that even if this continues here in Monrovia, that we figure out some way that we're going to coexist, and we are going to be good stewards for the next rural community who might be taken advantage of like we were, and we're going to give them an advantage to be on defense, where we didn't have any opportunity or time to be on defense because this happened so fast. So even if we do live with this, we're going to figure out how we protect our other rural communities, because we have a responsibility to our great state of Indiana. But we just got to really understand we have the cancer. We've accepted that, and that's hard to accept. And we're going to keep working to figure out how we make it better here in this community. But we have to understand how we got the cancer, why we got the cancer. Is it something we did? Is it something we were drinking? What happened? We know how we got the cancer here with this data center is because we weren't represented here in Monrovia, and we weren't represented in Morgan County. The community wasn't represented. The businesses were represented. Google was represented. That's why they signed NDAs. That's why this has been this is why we haven't had any transparency with it whatsoever. That's why. Because they're not working for the people. And we got to face the truth. The truth is, the reason we have the cancer is because of the legislation that is written and passed by the Republican Party, who has been in power in the great state of Indiana for the past 24 years. So if life isn't going well for you, and I know it's not, because we're in an affordability crisis, we're in a healthcare crisis, we're in all kinds of crisis. So we know that life is not going well for the average person unless you're in the top percent. So we're all struggling right now, every one of us. And we can unite with our struggle, and we can understand that we need change, and the only way we're going to make change is to vote differently in November. Means you can't pull one lever. Means you got to be studying which candidates do you believe is going to have enough conviction to represent you at the State House. And I'm your girl. House District 60, because guess what? The world's still on fire, isn't it, Stan?
It is. The coffee's good, but the day-to-day struggles are going to be there regardless. And if we're the bottom line is if we're not all working together, both on the environment, but also on the political side of it, if we're all not working together toward a common good and coming together, then we're going to lose as a nation and as a country.
And we know we're better than that.
And we, as a whole, we've done amazing things, and we can do more amazing things together as a group and as a nation if we work together and we pull together.
Yeah, and if we work together, and if we start putting people over power. I want to end this with the value that we need to be talking about right now as we have students going back to school. Next week here in Monrovia, our students will go back for the 26 and 27 school year. Gosh, that sounds crazy. I want public educators to know here in District 60 that I absolutely have your back, and I want your profession to have the value it deserves, because I know the importance of enriching lives for the future. And I'm going to work to make your lives richer, and I do believe that you need to be paid better. I do believe that you need to be able to strike here in Indiana when things aren't going as they should. So that's what I want to end on is I am your House District 60 candidate. I care about a lot of things, and one of the things that I care about most is public education. So as we go back to school, I do want the teachers to know, I was with some of them last week, but I do have your back, and we need to get better policy in place so that we can protect our children and you can continue to enrich lives as you do.
Good said. Well said.
Yeah. So.
All right, episode 4 is done.
Love it.